This is what we have all been waiting for. 3 games for the United States men's national team to fix what they did 5 years ago when they missed the World Cup. 3 games to make or break. 3 games to book their ticket and begin a 4-year stretch towards when they will host the World Cup and possibly change the sport forever in the United States and Canada. I'd like to include our Canadian friends here because big things happening here. But we're focusing on the U.S. men's national team. I'm not going to muddy the water and talk about who might be player 23 or 24 or 25 who makes this roster. We're not going to sit here and argue whether Joe Scally or John Brooks, who thinks going to make it, or Conrad De La Fuente, or please do not bring up Matthew Hoppe. Why are we discussing Matthew Hoppe at this point? We have to focus on the important stuff, and that is qualifying for the World Cup. There are some major concerns ahead of these 3 games starting on March the 24th in Mexico, then 3 days later in Orlando against Panama, and then wrapping up in Costa Rica. There are some big concerns. Now, there are some rays of light here to help the United States through, and they are the deepest team in this octagon, and it should be enough to get them through. I think they make it clean. 4 points will get them in. 3 points might even do the job. I expect them to be there. But they have, and Greg Berhalter in particular, has to make these big decisions, and they are big. And we will break those down here today on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. New video out there with Derek Ritchie of the Straight Red Card. I know you guys all know and love Derek here on YouTube. I was on his show. He is on mine. We break down this roster. We talk about Jesse Marsch. We talk about the CONCACAF Champions League. All 3 good news for American soccer. So check that out. The Soccer OG podcast, where all podcasts are available. And like and subscribe the video here. So, okay, we are not going to talk about who should be the 5th fullback or the 6th midfielder. We have some major holes in the starting 11, and we have to alleviate that. So we're going to break through that and ask some important questions here, because this is the job. This is what everything that's happened has led up to complete the process. No particular order, but these are the things that certainly resonate. Weston McKennie, broken foot, unavailable for these last 3 games. Best player, you could argue, for us over the last couple cycles, maybe the entire cycle. Big shoes to fill. How do you fill it? There are some options. Now, this could be twofold because Tyler Adams is carrying a yellow card, and you may want to protect him for the Panama game, which is the most important. Tyler Adams hasn't played a lot. He's not been in favor for Leipzig either, which could make the decision easier. So you could see a bit of a shuffle in the midfield where historically it was Musa, Adams, McKennie. I think now Kellen Acosta would replace Adams, and Luca de la Torre would essentially replace McKennie, with Musa joining them in the midfield. I think that's how it's going to look. Kellen Acosta, as I've said, gives you the free kicks, set-piece prowess, which the U.S. are lacking. Christian Pulisic has proven that it's not really his forte. He doesn't really take set pieces for Chelsea. You need someone for that. Lower altitude. I think Acosta's a guy who can really connect the field. He is going to be in the starting 11. The question is if Tyler Adams joins him, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. Luca de la Torre getting a chance to play against Honduras in the last game was huge because it's brought him into the squad, and now he's got that game under his belt. That's huge. If that didn't happen, we have bigger, more concerns. Now, other midfielders are not going to feature here. Gianluca Buccio's out of favor at Venezia. He also picked up a knock. So, as we'll talk about the roster later, just prepare yourself. Greg Berhalter's not going to make wholesale changes. He's not going to bring in guys that haven't been here prior. So, expect Sebastian Lletget and Christian Roldan to make up the numbers, and that's the way it's going to be. It's not the deepest position. With Weston McKennie, it's our strongest position, arguably, but once you get down 4 or 5, there are some problems. But still enough quality to fix it here for the United States. But Weston McKennie, he's got to be a bottle of nerves hoping that this team finishes the job. But he is a huge presence, and hopefully he'll be there in the summertime so we can prepare for the World Cup. Who plays in goal? And this is where we have had an incredible development that maybe we didn't deserve, and that is Ethan Horvath. Now, we have a dilemma because Zach Steffen and Matt Turner are both unavailable. We're now getting reports that Zach Steffen is returning to training, which should be enough to keep him in there and make him the starting goalkeeper. Remember, he doesn't play a lot. He just has to be training and fit, and I think he gets the number 1 shirt. But Ethan Horvath, out of nowhere, out of favor, has all of a sudden revived his career at Nottingham Forest in the Championship. He has started the last 5 games, initially for a suspended Bryce Samba. Now it looks like he is the number 1 goalkeeper. They love him at Forest. And in 5 games, he's allowed 2 goals, unbeaten, and that includes passage into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, where they will be facing Liverpool here in a few days. So Ethan Horvath's stock is soaring. So if there are any complications, with Zach Steffen, Horvath is the guy. He will start at the Azteca. Sean Johnson's another option. Sean Johnson's a guy who has played some minutes, won a championship with New York City FC. Is there a chance for him to start? I think it's Horvath or Steffen at this point, and it depends how far along Steffen is. But look, we're late in the game. If Steffen is not close to 100%, we are, 10 days away? 11 days by the time you watch, 10 days before you watch this video to see if he's going to get in. That is a big one. Obviously, you need the goalkeeping down pat. Now, the good news, and although this was now over almost a year ago, Horvath did play in the Nations League and came in for an injured Zach Steffen and played very well. But it's what he's doing at Nottingham Forest that can give us a little bit of comfort here. Unexpected, because he could have been the backup, and then we could really have, if Steffen's not ready, we're like, and I don't know if Turner's ready, and we're hearing that Turner's injury stems from the game in Minnesota, the cold game, so the frostbite game. So that's big. I mean, we're not replacing Weston McKennie, getting a goalkeeper. That's pretty seismic. These are big, big spots here for the U.S. I got another one for you. Who plays striker? The striker situation for the United States right now is pretty bleak. Ricardo Pepi, the golden child, not playing really for Augsburg, comes off the bench, plays a few minutes, sometimes doesn't come off the bench. They had their game postponed this weekend. He needs to get in it, and Augsburg have been successful without him. So not good. Not good for Ricardo Pepi. That doesn't mean he doesn't start the number 9, because you want consistency, you want familiarity if you're Greg Berhalter, and Ricardo Pepi has been the number 1 choice for most of the games. However, not for the first 2 games of the last cycle. Remember, it was Jesus Ferreira and Gyasi Zardes. Who makes the roster? Is there room for Gyasi Zardes and Jesus Ferreira? Josh Sargent, another option. Jordan Pefok. People are going to get upset, but I don't think... I thought Pefok could have made it. I just don't think it makes sense at this point, because he hasn't featured there, even though he scored another goal this weekend. He's the only one that's scoring goals. So you have to take that for face value. But it's just not a good fit. So he might make the roster. I don't think he starts possibly any games. If he does, maybe one, depending on how these games play out. So let's look at the other options. Josh Sargent has been playing. I think he's done really well. Greg Berhalter went and saw a Norwich game, and it's been good. It's been better than he was a couple months ago. He's going to make this roster. Now, he hasn't played as a number 9. He's played a little out wide right. And he's done a lot of the dirty work for Norwich, as we've discussed here on the Soccer OG in past videos. He could be a number 9. He could do that work from that position. I'm not 100% convinced, though. I'm not 100% convinced that out of the blue, you bring him in, you put him in here in this spot. He's still not, soaring with confidence because of the club he plays for. They are just awful, Norwich. And it's got to take a toll to play for that team where you barely touch the ball and you haven't scored a goal. You scored those 2 goals in that game, and that's been about it. But still, he should make the team. He deserves to make the team. So where does that leave us? Is it Gyasi Zardes? Possibly. As it applies to the game at the Azteca, I think because of what we saw in the last cycle, it's going to be Jesus Ferreira. Hasn't had a goal in MLS play, but he is playing. He belongs. He is definitely a national team caliber player. He almost scored a couple goals in that El Salvador game. He's active. And when I look at all the options, he starts to me make the most sense. And by the way, I spoke to Derek Ritchie about this on the podcast, and I think we both agreed. So Jesus Ferreira would be that. All right, so we filled 3 voids, 3 important questions. Another one, Chris Richards isn't playing. And we had that battery of 3 defenders, Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson. Miles Robinson suspended this weekend, didn't play, and Chris Richards. So can we rely on Chris Richards? I would say no, if he's not back by now with the foot injury from the Canada game. Who comes in? Well, much like Ethan Horvath, we have this ray of light, this development that was unexpected that could bring cover, and that is Aaron Long, playing for the Red Bulls, looking good. He is the archetype player for a Greg Berhalter system, the kind of defender who can play it out of the back, athletic, you name it. So he probably gets in there. John Brooks, Derek on the podcast said that he has intel that John Brooks is going to be brought in here. And I believe him. And it makes sense with no Chris Richards that both Long and Brooks makes it in, and maybe another center back. But there you have it. The defense has been good, but now you're down a man. Zimmerman, Robinson probably start, but then you need to have that cover for the next 2 games, right? Remember, Richards, Zimmerman, Robinson started all 3 games, a combination of those 2. I like it like that. I simplify this. Have those 3 guys. But it doesn't look like you have Richards, so you need to find an alternative. But you have options, so that's good news. I'm sorry, I'm running out of digits here with issues that we have to. And issues may be a bit of a strong word, because everyone has to have these concerns. Gio Reyna, does he get called in? This is the most interesting one for me. Gio Reyna came back for Dortmund. Remember, he had the big injury with the hamstring, and then he had a smaller injury. And that's just odd. When you have back-to-back injuries like that, that is an alarm bell, because that shouldn't be happening. When you come back from injuries, you should be cleared for everything, and not that this injury had anything to do with the other one. It still is not a great look. So you've got to proceed with caution with Gio Reyna. He played very well. And by the way, if he is someone that can come in and take set pieces, he took a couple set pieces for Dortmund in their victory over Bielefeld. By the way, George Bello played really well in that game. He looks ready to join the national team. And he almost scored a goal. He looked good. He has 2 more games before the teams come together for Mexico. They have a midweek game at Mainz, which wasn't going to happen, but now it's going to happen. And then they play Köln. And I would imagine Gio Reyna plays in both of them, maybe starts a game, which would say that, yes, he should get called in. And remember, it's going to be a big roster. It's going to be a bigger than 23-man roster. So maybe you make it a little bigger to bring in Gio Reyna. But keep in mind, Dortmund have a huge investment here. And to send him off on national team, and Gio Reyna has not played since the very first qualifier, to send him out on national team duty is a risk. And Dortmund, I am sure, will talk to Greg Berhalter and the U.S. team and say, don't take him. We got to get him well. And I think Greg Berhalter should listen to that. So I'm starting to believe that Gio Reyna does not make this team. Crazy. I know he's back in time and he could get 2 more games. I just think the positives, do they outweigh the negatives? The negatives is you take him away from his club. And remember, the U.S. have got a bad record of bringing back their players injured. Turner, Richards, it's a problem. It's happening. So these clubs are like, so I think there's going to be a big boys conversation about whether he comes in. And I'm leaning into Gio Reyna not getting called in. I hope he does because he can do so much. But we got to take care of him in the big picture. Got to make sure he's okay down the road. This is what I talked about in earlier videos, that Gio Reyna, we have to forget about the World Cup, make sure he's healthy, and then if he's good for the World Cup, it's a bonus, put him in there. All right, those are 5 big ones, right? 5 big topics that we're going to address. We'll be back here to discuss the roster when it's announced, which should be in a couple more days. It's going to be a mixed bag. You may not be happy with some of them, but the good news is Horvath and Long, Reyna's back, whether he comes into this window or not. That's good. There's some guys like Gianluca Busio that we can't rely on because he's picked up a bit of injury. So expect Greg Berhalter to lead into the old guard. Not that they are going to play, but that core group of guys that should make a difference. Finally, I want to say Christian Pulisic. After last weekend, he played tremendously for Chelsea. He was man of the match against Burnley. He's picked up an illness. Reports are that he could have played, but he didn't. That was the game against Norwich. And then Chelsea played Newcastle. He came off the bench and he played left wing back, which is fine. I just get a little worried about that because you just want momentum for Christian Pulisic. You want Pulisic to have a 2-month stretch where he's playing all the time and playing well. And it seemed like he was getting there, and then the illness. This is part and parcel of the situation we have with Christian Pulisic. Hopefully he can shake it, because the good news is he's not ill next week. And he talked about this. He can't press too much for this team when it comes. He's got to share the responsibility. But Christian Pulisic in form is a game changer, and we hope he has a famous night at the Estadio Azteca. The Soccer OG. Check out the podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe our videos here. We have a big month ahead of us. April comes in with the World Cup draw. This is the place that you should be. We are here to share the knowledge. I'll talk to you very soon.